Good morning. Before I get started, I want everybody to turn around, look in that corner. That's leadership, Murray County. We'll recognize them on the floor, but they belong to me. I expect all of y'all to be extremely nice to me while they're here. Now I think I've taken ownership of them. They belong to me. Y'all bow with me, please. Gracious Heavenly Father, again we come asking you to forgive us of our sins, to say thank you for a wonderful weekend, the time to be away, to be with family, to wind down a little bit on what's going to start being a very hectic schedule. Lead us and guide us as we carry the business of the state. Forgive us when we do wrong things. Give us knowledge and wisdom. Be with us, guide us, and lead us, and ask these things in my Savior's name. Amen. Okay, I'm running a little late, and we are so privileged to have a couple of new members from the Senate. We've seen two of them. I want y'all to go back over and tell how many folks were on the wall, two of which have been here for days. The first one is the senator who belongs to that group, Mr. Bethel.
Thank you,
I think
Mr.
that's
Chairman.
the first time anybody's ever clapped in this room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In modified structure, the second from the bottom of that section, Senate Bill 94 deals with witness identification procedures, and in committee has added language on search and seizures that's supported by the Prosecuting Attorney's Council.
The only person that could have a question on this bill is sitting beside me. Anybody have a question? And I'm sure Mr. Golick does.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Bethel, the amendment that we put on was actually House Bill 430, which was put forward by Representative Estration. That language is pretty extensive. However, it is clarification language, true clarification language, and in some cases actually restricts law enforcement in some areas, and it represents an agreement between the criminal defense bar, law enforcement, as well as the ACLU, is my understanding. Is that your understanding as well?
That is my understanding.
Okay. I just want to make sure that was clear as we potentially move forward on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We picture take at 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under modified open rule, I have Senate Bill 119, which makes the first Monday of May Water Professionals Appreciation Day. And then under that is Senate Resolution 266 and 267 that deals with state properties.
Any questions of Mr. Jeffries?
Thank you.
I beg your pardon? Mr. Setzler.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask the gentleman, what does exactly this 266 do with respect to state properties?
It's property conveyance, and this is from the state properties, and it deals with 10 counties where they've sold property.
Thank you.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've spoken with, and actually my senator from my delegation, when I spoke with him this morning, we've learned over the weekend that one of the properties that's in here, one of our counties may have an issue in receiving it. They've looked at it and understand that there's some buildings that have been condemned, maybe some asbestos problems, and in talking with the senator and with the chairman's pleasure, I'd like to request that we hold 266 until I can further talk with all the parties involved in this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Harper.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. Under modified structural, the last one on the list, Senate Bill 139. I talked about it the other day, just a good little less regulation bill, Mr. Chairman. It's the famous plastic bag bill that I'm sure everybody is aware of.
Any questions? Thank you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir. Do I just ask the chairman? Do I need to return to rules and ask for?
How many times you been here?
This is the second time, Mr. Chairman.
Boy, I'd probably do one more.
I can handle one more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Tippins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly hope 3 strikes and I'm in. It's good to be back with you this morning to ask for Senate Bill 2. There's been some conversations over the weekend about the age limit of 16. Lieutenant Governor's office has agreed that they're all right with striking that language because technical colleges now have the authority to admit students that are younger than that. It's at their discretion, but they do have the waiver power. And LG's office is good with striking that phrase that pertains to the age 16. We realize that in some instances it may be a problem. I think the requirement that the course requirements that they have to complete will probably take care of the age requirement.
Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We vetted this bill pretty good in Education Committee, but I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask that I don't remember being asked. What happens to a student that goes through the technical college and then later decides they want to go to college? How are they going to, how is that going to the courses that they've had in technical plus that in high school, how is that going to relate to what they might be able to enter?
It depends on the institution that they're going to. If the courses are transferable to the university system, they should not be a problem. But not all courses are always transferable, especially in some of the major programs. I can't tell you off the top of my head specifically what they are, but I know all courses that are taken are not always transferable. But that would be dependent on the institution.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, can I one more? Student that leaves high school and goes to technical college, let's say that they've been there for a year and a half, and they decide that's not what they want to do. Where do they go back to, and in what year would they be in their high school?
Depends on their academic record. Most of those courses are transferable, and there is a matrix of matching those courses up. They could go back to traditional high school if they so chose.
Okay.
And the course credit that they had would go back and count as high school credits.
Okay, but then those courses that are required to graduate from high school, are they going to have to?
Yes, sir. If they return to a high school setting, they would be required to meet the high school graduation period.
Okay, so that could extend out their graduation period for another year? Is that?
It could.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Under the modified structure rule, SB 88 is better known as the payroll card bill, which basically just allows companies the ability to pay their employees by way of debit or credit card payment. If there's any questions, I'll open the floor.
Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, looking at line 46 through 51, the language in here says that employers shall make these forms generally available to employees. The concern that's been raised is that employees will not know about the option of not taking advantage, and that the language generally available can mean we put it in the break room, and if you happen to see it, it's now been made available to you.
No, we've instructed in the bill address those issues because there were a lot of concerns with this bill from last year when it came over from the House to the Senate, and they have to, and if the company wants to move to a direct deposit or payroll card payment, they have to give the current employees 30 days notice that they're doing that, and allow them to opt out of it if they so choose. Also, with new employees, it's just like a 401k or health benefits package. They have to be given it in advance with their new enrollment package or whatever, and let the employee know this is how they pay. However, at any given time, they can opt out of that and ask for a check.
And I see that language. I guess I'm questioning the utility of having that final language, which seems to create a bit of an exemption. So you have a fairly extensive language in 38 through 46, and then you end with a sentence that seems to undercut the specificity of this language.
Well, the intent of this is to try to benefit those who are unbankable. You know, the companies that are wanting to go to direct deposit, and person that does not have a checking account per se that where they can receive a direct deposit. This is just another option for the employee to give to the employer to give to his employee, and at any given time, if the employee does not feel comfortable, they can opt out of the program.
Thank you.
Mr. Peake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Jones, this is a good initiative. I'm supportive of it because, particularly in the hospitality industry, that does happen quite often where you have employees that don't have bank accounts. And so, but is this required because it's not allowed in Georgia under Georgia code now?
It's just clearing up the code section. There are companies that are currently doing it right now, but it was unclear whether or not, you know, with all the new technologies that we have today, obviously the code is very old, and all this is doing is just codifying the code that those who are already doing this, that it is legal and that it is proper to do in Georgia.
It's a good initiative.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr.
No more questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Sims.
I'd like to ask for House Resolution 419. It is extend the authorization to receive funding from the federal government for our canal. We seem to have been left out this time, and we're hoping to send this resolution urging them to allow us back in. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I just want to put my name by House Resolution 613 by Representative Martin.
Has he asked for that thing?
Yes, sir, last week.
Mr. Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for Senate Bill 72. This is Tonja's Law. This also includes a couple of House bills that significant improvement to the bill, and just ask for favorable consideration. Thank you.
How many things have we got in that bill? Good grief.
Only the good stuff.
Oh, okay. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to put my name beside Senate Bill 88, and also like to note that this bill passed the House last year with only one dissenting vote, and we've addressed several of the employee-related issues that people have had a concern with, and it's much more employee-friendly today than it was last year.
Mr. Dixon.
I'd like to put my Senate Bill 2, please.
Nobody else? All right. Ms. Smith.
Oops, I forgot to put my name by Senate Bill 119, the Water Professionals Appreciation Day. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We're going to set for tomorrow, Tuesday's calendar. Under modified open, HR 419. Any opposed? It's on. Modified open, SB 2. Any opposition? I will remind you that there will be an amendment on your desk. Since this is open, it'll go through the just lay on the desk. Okay, modified open. SB 119. Any opposition? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I'd like a day to look at this. I think we're opening up a can of worms. As much as I like our water professionals, do we have statutory appreciation days for teachers, for law enforcement? We have teacher appreciation days, we have law enforcement, but these are generally by resolution, and they're generally by, are we going to get into a position where every state or public employee comes down here and asks us for an appreciation day? I think we're going down an interesting path with that. To put it in the law that we appreciate, I think we should appreciate them, but not by statute. So I'd like a day to look at that and talk to the authors.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would it help the bill if I could put Representative Earhart's name in there? Thank you. I agree with a request to delay a day.
Ms. Sims.
Mr. Chairman, I failed to put my name by SR 267.
Okay.
I'd like to do that.
I'm gonna hold those two bills, 266 and 267, so I can get Mr. Knight's stuff fixed. All right, we'll grant Mr. Earhart's request of a day. Under modified structure, HR 613. Any opposition? It's on. And I saved y'all a lot of time and grief today by telling the rules chairman over in the Senate if he would not come back in my building or my room or Terry's room, we'll argue about whose room it is, I'd put his bill on. And since he so graciously didn't show up and we didn't have to put up with it, I'm going to put SB 72. Any opposition? It's on. Under modified structure, SB 94. Any opposition? That's it.